It recognizes our belief in God, our country, not just individuals, our country, our founding fathers codified this in the documents that founded this country. Our reliance, our belief in God, and our reliance upon God. Of that, there's just no debate on that. You may like it, may not like it. Declaration of Independence, we find these truths to be self-evident, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, of which are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. It goes on in the Constitution to say we are putting together this Constitution in a preamble to secure the blessings, not only for ourselves, for posterity. And that Constitution followed with a Bill of Rights that enumerated those godly rights given to man, including the very first one, which was a right to believe in God and to express that belief anytime, anywhere, including the public square.
33 million. It's proven to the money investors that people want something to feed their souls, not just their worst desires.
Absolutely.
And
yes, indeed.
This kind of sums up my entire dialogue career on the heat of the night. You ready for this? Okay, this is it. My 7 years on the heat of the night. My dialogue all summarized in this. Get right on it, Chief.
Now, behind the mic at KXEX, this is the Alan Autry Show. No retreat.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
What the hell's going on out here? Everybody grabbing out there. Nobody.
that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
So 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable. Free at last! Free at last! Thank Almighty! We are free at last!
And como está, mi amigos and amigas? Yo soy Alan Autry y Roberto Lioni. No Roy Triado. How do you like my Spanish? Huh? I'm getting a thumbs up.
No roteado.
No retriado. Never. No retriado. You gotta lay the Spanish in there, man. I'm just practicing in case we ever transfer over Spanish-speaking station. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to ride that bilingual horse.
Yeah, well, that's good. It's good to know.
How do you say trigger in Spanish?
Trigger?
Trigger? It's trigare. Come on, brush up on your Spanish. Trigare. Isn't it? Don't you know it's free for all Friday?
It's always good to know. Hey, by the way,
please, Jesus.
Since you mentioned, well, no, I'm going to stick on foreign language.
I'm in a mood, folks. I'm just warning you. I'm just in a mood. I used to get this. I get this way occasionally. Anybody's known me. Pearl, you've known me since grammar school. Folks have known me.
Yeah,
football in college, pros, movie business, politics. Every once in a while, old Autry gets in a silly mood. But anyway, go forward. Enough about me. Let's let you talk about me.
You want me to talk about you?
Yeah, you might as well.
Another voice heard from.
What else are we going to talk about?
Well, you know what's interesting about
nothing going on in the world. Yes, go ahead.
Pretty boring. Yeah. And I do have some interesting on this day facts.
You love these on this day.
Well, how
about on this day, July 31st, 1952?
Nothing happened. It was an absolute nothing in the world happened. Oh, wait a minute.
a little baby child was born in Louisiana.
Oh, there was
People,
that.
can't you understand?
There was that.
The kid need a helping hand.
Boy, did he ever.
All right, go ahead.
Where were we?
I don't. You said you had an on this day? No.
Oh, yeah. Well, just to bring
Do it because I'm about ready to go to toilet paper issue
Well,
because I got a real bone to pick again with Guillermo. Who right now, before you go in on this day, we got to explain where Guillermo is. He's usually here with us. And as you were informed, let the folks know where he is.
Well, he's in Washington, D.C. on a building.
On top of a building.
On top of a building. Was he trying to gain access?
Well,
was he storming the building? What's he doing?
I don't know. Maybe he just thinks it's January 6th again or something. He just got a year ahead of time.
September 23rd.
I don't know. He's up there reporting on immigration and what, Jeremy?
The midterms.
And the midterms. Why on top of a I don't know, maybe he's out there
better reception,
launching drones with Make America Great Again, little MAGA drones flying around out there. But anyway, he's there. We appreciate him being there. We love our Guillermo. He's just a great partner to be with, and such courage in this young man to have a station like this in these kind of times, and fighting the good fight. But again, it's like the third time, and I keep interrupting you. Going back to you. What do you have there?
Can I get through this?
I'm sorry.
It's only a few seconds. It's
I know.
not a big
I'm sorry. I'm just
on this day.
Yes.
In 1949.
Okay. I was 3 years old.
You weren't even born.
I told you it's all about me, man.
You're going to weave that into any conversation, aren't you? It's going to be, okay.
I'm a humble guy.
Yeah, you are. 1949, on this day, September 23rd, President Harry Truman announced evidence of the USSR's first nuclear detonation. Interesting, since we've been talking, since Putin has now rattled that saber about nuclear weapons.
Yes.
So that's semi-timely.
You know what? How irony. Love irony. I love, I don't believe in coincidence. It's just God's way of staying anonymous.
Correct.
Sounds like a snappy little comeback, but I believe that to be true. I think every event, no matter how small, innocuous it may seem, has a purpose to it. That's just what I believe. I think it's right out of Scripture. But Harry Truman was in my notes for a very on that kind of very much associated with that subject you're talking about, and the warning that Putin has given the West and the United States concerning, if you keep going this way, this is what's going to happen. And by no means, when we talk about this, I don't know if we'll get to it here in the first half hour, but definitely by the second half hour, because I think it's tremendously important what this man said. I mean, love him, hate him, in the middle, crazy maniac, whatever you want to call him, he is the president. And I hate to tell you this, a very popular one in Russia and around the world. I know it's hard for us in our little cocoon here in America to believe that, but he is. And when he talks, we should listen. It certainly doesn't mean agree with him. There's no reason in my book, and I think in a lot of others' books, to do an old-fashioned, old-school invasion of a freaking country because you have a grievance there. But then there's reality. You have to consider once in a while in our fantasy land that we like to live with here in America, there's a thing called reality that usually has its way with fantasy. I can't remember a time where fantasy beat reality. You? No. I think it's about
let me think about
10
that.
quadrillion to zero. Yeah. When it goes up, fantasy goes up against reality. We know who wins.
Reality usually wins over.
Usually, I can't. And if somebody has an example where fantasy has prevailed, hey, I want to be a handsome guy in Hollywood. Reality hit me right in my face. I had to change I had to go, well, maybe I can be a little Tom Selleckish to, there's got to be room for an ugly guy in Hollywood. So the competition is less because all those guys are good looking and you need a guy that looks like me there. So you start spinning it to a positive because that's reality. Okay. As much as I want to, I'm not going to look like Brad Pitt or Robert Redford. I mean, Robert Redford at 89 years old or whatever he is now is still better looking than me by far. And I got to understand that, and it helped me in football because I knew I couldn't run like, Archie Manning. I mean, my blazing 5'6" in the 40. I had a strong arm, but not a cannon. And I knew that I couldn't win a game by myself. I needed a good team around me to win. And once
you understand that, I went a pretty long way in that field, football. But you have
to get to where you were. Let's talk about you,
right? You know, again. Well, it's
just
like
to get where you were was a major accomplishment.
Well, you know, Shaquille,
Mr. Autry.
Well, Shaquille.
I mean, come on.
Do you know Shaquille O'Neal's story? One time, Shaquille O'Neal wanted to be a jockey.
Yeah. Well, there's the fantasy versus reality.
Exactly. Then there came a time where Shaquille, when he's bigger than the horse that he's riding, you know, he says
maybe this isn't going to work.
This fantasy is not going to work. And we're dealing with fantasy over there with Russia, thinking that Ukraine, a country of 30 million people, is going to be a country of 140 million people. And let's face it, I hate to put it in these terms, but because I want your opinion. I promise I'm going to shut up. But I am in one of those moods. You know, can't people see this, what Putin's doing? What we've seen heretofore, you see Ukraine out jumping down, doing victory laps, Lindsey Graham declaring victory, Joe Biden declaring victory. Over there in UK, I don't know what's going on. The Boris Johnson virus is everywhere. I don't know what they're thinking. They used to be very pragmatic people. They're going around, oh, we won victory in our time. This is the country that gave us Neville Chamberlain. You know, like peace in our time before the world exploded with Hitler. But coming back, saying that Russia is on the doorstep of defeat, total defeat, going to be not only run out of the Ukraine, but probably part of Russia being destroyed. This is what they're talking about. And the fact of the matter is, Vladimir Putin has used his second, third, and fourth string in this war, to put it in, I hate to do that in sports terms. It's clear. And he's getting ready now to put in the first string, and by the way, bring out the big guns. He said in this speech that he has weapons that are far more superior technologically than the West. He didn't mean nuclear. I don't think he meant nuclear. They've got traditional bombs that have advanced way beyond anything we have. They have satellite-destroying laser weapons that we don't have. They are so far ahead of us in space warfare, and yet they laugh at Trump for creating the Space Force. Bobby, what's your take on this? I see this victory lap, and I'm shaking my head going, this isn't good. You better listen to this dude, and you better get to the table and start negotiating.
Well, today, as you mentioned, today they're doing the referendums to annex. Started today, and there was some footage that was shown, I think, through Reuters.
And that's at Luhansk and Donetsk and Luhansk, which make up that Donbass region.
I believe it was in that section. Okay. So they could, we talked about the other day, so Russia could annex those areas and then declare an all-out war because now it becomes part of Russia. Exactly. But on the other side, I'm also seeing that there's some cracks in Putin's armor a little bit. Not that he cares, but this call up for 300,000 additional troops, mostly reservists, and that's happening. I mean, they're literally going house to house, knocking on doors if they've got the list of folks who served in the Russian military, and tell them, hey, you come with us. And but there's a ton of people leaving Russia, going into Georgia or whatever.
You know, Ukraine's doing the same thing.
Other countries,
they're not letting men leave the country.
Well, Russia. Well, so far,
both of those,
the Russians are leaving the country. A lot of draft age men are leaving the country. There isn't an outright conscription yet.
Right.
I think that's the next part of this. But as we've talked all along, yes, Ukraine has made significant strides in recovering previously held land, but this is Putin's got another plan after this plan. If this plan is Plan B, he's still figuring out and plotting his next move. So although Ukraine has made inroads, I still think this is going to be a long, drawn-out affair. And I think your thought of, well, let's see what happens this winter is major effort, because when people start getting frozen out
We're literally frozen to death.
Frozen to death.
Some of those little small little villages
no food, and they're still under occupied territory. That's going to be a tough go. And you start bringing people to their knees like that. Now, there were some protests in Russia after this recent request for 300,000 additional people, but those folks have been quieted because they got arrested.
But isn't there something, Bobby, that's just fundamentally wrong? It just feels odd, like I'm in the twilight zone in the history of our country. That the only country out there calling for peace is China. I mean, it should be us. We have always been the country that said, okay, peace through strength, yes, but let's seek a diplomatic solution, not complete overthrow in most cases of a government or a situation where you have two countries going at it. That the preferable solution is that you have a negotiated settlement. Now that I know that changed, with Saddam Hussein in Iraq, but there's a lot of leaders in the Middle East we don't like. I mean, that do atrocious things, but you don't invade them. Like invite a journalist from the Washington Post to a hotel room and have your people chop him into 9,000 pieces and send him around the world like Saudi Arabia did. And then you go and shake hands with him, fist bump him. There's something going on that's very un-American in terms of our moral tendency. Well, to at least say, with lip service at least, look, we seek peace. We want a peaceful solution to this particular conflict. We pretty much always said that, even if you really didn't want it. America was there kind of leading the way. And you don't see that, and knowing full well that it's at this point not our soldiers being killed on the battle, but that's the next step. This is exactly how Vietnam unfolded. Excuse me, go ahead.
Well, what did you
excuse me.
Us requesting that the parties get together to seek a peace agreement. What did you see in President Biden's speech the other day to the UN? There was nothing in there about negotiated peace.
It was war, and more war. Then Blinken stepped up there. War, and more war. Who's going to make gazillions off of war? Who has made gazillions off of war? Joe Biden and his brother are going to make gazillions off of war contracts.
He said he said Putin was the only. Putin started the war, and he's the only one that can stop it.
Look, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about this Harry Truman story you brought up, this point, and how it fits in, I think, very strongly in a cautionary way to our situation there in Ukraine. And I think we really, they say history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. In this case, it could very well repeat itself. And that would be a very dangerous thing, not only for the United States, but the entire world. This is Alan Autry, Robert.
Like he can call in for the second segment.
Yeah, have him call in.
I don't think that's going to disrupt our flow. I don't think that's a good idea.
It's good. We can't then talk about me the whole time.
Yeah,
just going to hold on.
Let's find another subject.
All roads lead to me.
Good.
I'm just kidding, folks. Really seriously, I still get embarrassed when I have a birthday party for me. I never had one until I was 29 years old. Never had a birthday party. I don't like, to talk about, because I just honestly, still to this day, I just think I'm an average guy. I've gone as far as mediocrity can go. Mediocrity is...
You reach your highest level of incompetence.
Yes, there's something to be said for the highest degree of mediocrity.
Doesn't come overnight.
Yes.
There's a lot of hard work involved in that.
Being pretty good is okay. Not everybody can be great. Not everybody. I gave up on that a long time ago. Be happy with me. And my big goal now, my big goal now is
live another day?
Well, I want to reach the state of being a sweet old man. I want to be a sweet old man.
Look at Grandpa.
Yeah, I want to be just a sweet old man.
Okay.
I just want to be nice to people. Now, that doesn't mean you don't call out wrong when you see it. Excuse me. And, that sort of stuff. It doesn't mean you don't get involved in some debates, but, I try to not call names. That's not my nature. again, I've said this so many times, I may call behavior idiotic and may say that's an idiotic thing to do.
Well, there's a lot of
but
that
idiot's not really, you know what I mean. When you can call somebody a knucklehead, knothead, idiot, dumbbell. Okay. It's when you go in and call them, that person is Hitlerian. He's Hitler.
Yeah.
Or she's evil. She's this and that.
A direct personal attack.
That's God's job.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. When you're basically condemning their soul.
Yeah.
You know.
And not their politics.
How much time before we go back?
45 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, that was a short break.
There's a word we're going to talk about next week on Taco Tuesday called presentism. You know what presentism is? I just heard it last night. Yeah.
I read that the other day.
Yeah. It means, yeah. And that's, boy, what a great. It is judging people from the past by the standards of today. Yeah, meaning the you today would be the same you as 1,000 years ago if you were around.
Well, we
have Guillermo on, and we have 17 seconds.
Guillermo? Oh, look, he hung up already.
There he goes.
We're going to have Chewy lead us off. Get Chewy reading off the second half.
He's back on 10 seconds.
All right, get Chewy ready. Chewy's going to catch
Autry.
Guillermo. Oh. Help me out, Bobby. Guillermo. Kicking off the second segment. We're so, Bullet Bob and I are so just honored to have he's not really a special guest. He's just the regular guest who ain't here now.
Our D.C. correspondent.
For the day, reporting from D.C., Guillermo Marino. Guillermo, are you there?
I am here, and let me tell you, your Spanish is muy bueno.
Gracias, mi amigo. Gracias. I'm looking at your chair. It's here, honored. It's empty here. But tell folks where you are and what you're doing. Because you should.
Hey, Washington, D.C., the Federation for American Immigration Reform. It's a 2-day event where they bring in politicians and we hold their feet to the fire. That's what it's actually entitled. The conference is Hold Their Feet to the Fire. So 50 radio hosts from across the nation talk to congressmen and women and, question them on immigration and what they're doing and what they're not doing.
You say hold their feet to the fire. You know, politicians probably have the most baby butt type foot skin on the bottom of their feet. No, there are absolutely no scars.
Now you're a podiatrist.
There's no fire scars damage at all. How are you going to hold them their feet to the fire, Guillermo? What's going on? How is that going to happen?
Well, really, it's kind of hard because the ones that really need to be held accountable it's actually both. It's actually the right and the left. But the ones that should be held accountable don't show up. It's the ones that are on the front line that really care about immigration. And the ones that they show up. But our presence in D.C. just makes it, highlights immigration.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you about 2 events that really, out of all the guests that I had on Diamond and Silk yesterday. We spoke to the former ICE director, Tom Homan, the former acting secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf. And there was 2 highlights of my trip. The first one was yesterday. I get to my booth to broadcast, and guess who's sitting right there in my booth?
Hunter Biden.
I listen. So he was weighing out his crack.
Hey! If Leo Terrell can go from liberal to conservative, so can Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden 2.0.
Well, who was it?
I told you that I would welcome Hunter Biden. Let him go to Ukraine. I mean, I bet you he'll have that. We'll own Ukraine and Russia by the time he leaves.
Exactly right. But who was it though? Sit down. Seriously, who was?
It was Jeff Sessions.
Oh, wow.
No kidding.
Former, and he was sitting there and he goes, he was eating his lunch, a sandwich and some chips, and he goes, sir, would you like me to move? And I said, no, Mr. Sessions. I said, it's an honor to have you eat right here at my booth. You can stay there. And sure enough, he stayed there for about a good 40 minutes, and he was listening to me broadcast. And at the end of it, we were just chatting about just the changes in America. And he stood up, and his aide was saying, hey, Mr. Sessions, you're late to your next appointment. He looked at me and he goes, because I was telling him about housing. We started talking about housing. And he says, I'm a free market capitalist. But when the middle class can't afford homes, we got a problem.
I have always been a Jeff Sessions fan. I really have. I think
he's a nice man.
Well, he's just common sense.
Yeah.
I haven't always agreed with him, but he just exudes that Southern common sense that used to be so prevalent, not just in the South, all over. So how do he look? He's got to be about 98 now?
He was 98, but I mean, he was sharper than a tack, way better than Joe Biden is. And then
smarter than me.
Such a kind man. And you know when you look at someone, you look into their eyes, and he's such an honest man.
People don't realize that. And this is another thing, Trump, I'll say it again, a lot of his policy I agreed with, and some things good, some things bad. I don't canonize him. I don't idolize him. Respect him for what he did. But what gets lost in this, if it wasn't for Jeff Sessions, I don't know if he would have made it to the primary. Jeff Sessions was the first name politician. Yep. Remember that? That came out and said...
He put his neck out on the line.
He put his neck out. And then all of a sudden, what? People went, who? What? Jeff Sessions is supporting Trump? And that kind of allowed others to follow suit.
To step up. Then.
Because he was so respected and been there for so long on both sides of the aisle. He'd opened a lot of eyes. And then Trump just, kicked him to the curb like
a lot of people.
Like an old Jack-in-the-Box rapper that you
like
played.
An old deflated football.
He's a great man, Sessions, because he could have taken over as AG. Well, he was AG, but he could have come in and said, you know what? I think we need to go after the Bidens, and I think we need to go after the Clintons. He had enough ammo to go after them.
Go ahead.
But he said, you know what? We got work to do as a country. We don't need to go backwards. He could have easily done what they're doing to Trump now. He chose not to.
And this is going to rub a lot of people on the right wrong, but quite honestly, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I really don't care. The stage of the game. Sessions gave Trump and this country the biggest gift it could in recusing himself from that impeachment and getting this special prosecutor thing going and all that. It needed to be, if this wouldn't have happened, I know he's gone through 2 impeachments, but the people see that no president has been examined, so much has been looked over, and every single document in his life, every single event that he's done in his life. And if that hadn't happened, that would have weakened Trump. I really do. I think Trump's strength right now is drawn primarily from the struggle that he's been through. And if that struggle wouldn't have been there, I don't think he would be nearly as popular if he hadn't gone through the 2 impeachments. The Bible says what man meant for evil, God meant for good. And all things work together for good. And he did the right thing. He was just too freaking close to Trump. He did the right thing by recusing himself. Yeah, everybody talks a big game on both sides of the party. Have the courage to do what's right, not what's politically expedient. Don't cover your rear end. Don't look down the line for being paybacks and favors and all that. Dadgummit, have the guts to do the right thing. Well, he did. And he pretty much become persona non grata in the Republican Party.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me tell you real quick about the second one. When we talk about immigration, you have about 11 plus million people here illegally.
Conservative.
So it was my goal. Yeah, conservative. That's true. It was my goal to ask this tough question of this group, FAIR, because Federation for American Immigration Reform. Because we have a big elephant in the room. We need to secure the border, but what do you do with the 11 million people here? Right? Mm-hmm. You can't deport them all. You grant full amnesty? So I asked the former acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf. Had him on for about 15 minutes, and I asked him, I said, what do we do with illegal individuals here already that have a life? And the listeners couldn't see this, but he looked at me, and I could tell that was something that he and President Trump struggled with. And he said, that's a tough question. And he pretty much said, hey, listen, if the Democrats were willing, Trump was willing to make a deal, and he threw out about 4 million amnesty. So we're always getting told by the left that we're ill-hearted, we're inhumane, that we don't treat illegal immigrants correctly. But it was interesting to see the Trump administration with all the rhetoric with the wall was willing to say, hey, look, let's meet halfway. And I could tell by looking in his eye. He wasn't heartless at all. He got a lot of bad press, but it looked like he probably would have been willing to grant amnesty to a lot of the individuals here illegally, which would have made the right really crazy. So it was just interesting because I want to let everybody know, conservative, we have a heart, We just want finality. You know, we'll grant a certain level of amnesty, but we got to secure the entire border.
Well, I don't know who said it, but said if you're in your teens and 20s, and you're not a Democrat, you don't have a heart, and if you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you don't have a brain. And I think that's the situation. But you know, I have a very simple solution to this. Based on the premise of no, you're not going to round up 11 million. Let's say it's 11 million people who came here prior to this whole border thing. And I was the first mayor. I was the first mayor in America in 2002. In the state of the city, said this is an issue that affects us locally. Illegal immigration. We cannot afford to have the overcrowding in our hospitals, our schools, our social services. We're getting killed. Somebody's federal government. You got to come in here and act. Support, secure the border and reform the legal immigration system and make this thing work better because cities are getting killed. Well, now every mayor, it's one of the top issues there. But prior to that, crossing the border illegally was a federal crime. It was the federal government's responsibility to make sure that did not happen en masse or just a little bit. There was a legal process you're supposed to follow, and you follow that to get in the country. And that's just how it works. But then big business, the chambers of commerce across this country started wielding their influence and said, wait a minute, we need cheap labor. And we need labor. Mm-hmm. We need labor that you can't unionize because we don't want unions. So they said, come one, come all. Come on over here illegally. The federal government did nothing. And you had these good people coming to the border going, well, no, it's the law. I can't come. And they said, don't worry, Jose. Blow the stop sign. We're not writing tickets anymore. Come on over here. We need your help. And by the way, you smell that over here? That's called freedom and opportunity for you, Jose, and your family. And by the way, bring your wife because we got both the husband and the wife, the mother and the father working, and nobody's raising our kids. So bring your wife and raise our kids for us. Come on, we need you. And you know what? They did come in droves, and who wouldn't? It got so out of control, then you can look it up, no less than a top-tier publication than the Wall Street Journal had a cover story on the cover, the upside of illegal immigration. That's how imbued illegal immigration was in our system. So now, all those people that came over here, my point is, if you invite somebody to a party, you better be careful how you kick them out of the party. They were invited here. So what I would suggest, very simple, and I'll get feedback from you all and listeners you want to call in. You start with like a point system. You give 5 years for folks to come forward out of the shadows. If you have a job, you get points for that. If you haven't broken the law, you get points for that. If your kids are here and in school, you get points for that. If you're involved in some activities that help your community, you see it every day. Let's face it. Let's stop being politically correct. You say to all these little towns, Riverdale, Fireball, Mendota, Tranquility, San Joaquin, a lot of those folks aren't here legally, but they're at that game every day with their kids, watching their kids play on Friday night, and they're exceptional parents. You bring them forward, and then you have these points. If you've broken the law, you have this, you don't have a job, you've been on public assistance for so many years, you get minus points. And then you have this metric worked out. And if you have a certain amount of points, then you get a choice to get in line and seek citizenship. That gets them out of the shadows so they're not afraid. Most of these people out there in these little towns in Central California, I know around the country, can't even have a bank account. They got their money underneath a mattress because they're afraid to go to a bank and start a bank account because they're going to get deported. Mm-hmm. So you give them 5 years to come forward. Then at the end of 5 years, if you haven't come forward, game on. You're going to have to be deported, but you get to give 5 years. That's a solution to this. And now I'm going to borrow from Tom Sowell. There's no wins and losses in politics. There's just trade-offs. That's my trade-off. At least it gets something done, and somebody who's been here, who came here at the invitation of our system, right, and helped build a strong America. The ones that are there busting the dishes and works their way up out of there that construct our homes, that work in our cars, all of that, raise our kids, hotel rooms, make sure you come back to your hotel room and it's great. They help build a great America. They should be respected for that. Okay, you guys go on that. Something to chew on.
Alan, it'll never. Let me tell you why it'll never work, because it's too common sense. It's too common sensey. It makes sense, so it'll never work. And these parties don't ever want to solve this, which is the sad part, because you're dealing with a bunch. You're doing millions of lives.
Well, I've got an idea. Why don't we start it on this show? Why don't we start it on this show right now? Let's be the match that lights the flame that starts the fire. Let's start not a political party, but let's call it the American Independent Alliance or the American Independent Association. You can be Republican, Democrat, pro-life, pro-choice, whatever, but it's all based on common sense and the Constitution. And that's the one thing that binds this group together. And in that are some basic principles. One is there's no right way to do the wrong thing. You have laws, you enforce the laws. You would have nearly the crime you have right now. And most people, whether Democrat, Republican, woke, or Proud Boys, believe in that. You're seeing it in the polls. Yet you have this woke left that just wants to let anarchy and chaos reign so it can quicken the demise of America. And then you have the folks on the right that hate the government just as bad, maybe for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got government haters on both sides. Most people right now are independent thinking on the real common sense, gut level, foundational, fundamental principles that made this country great. And we need to be able to have an association or alliance or what have you. So I'm going to ponder on that. Pearl,
okay.
That's a great idea, Alan.
Well, Guillermo, I was interested in your comment about the folks on the left don't think that the conservatives or Republicans or whatever side you want don't have a heart. Yet you talked to Mr. Wolf and you got his visceral reaction right there in front of you. But who initiated the biggest amnesty program in United States history?
Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan. Exactly. And if there was anybody that was an ultra conservative in his day, it was Ronald Reagan. So this stuff about not having a heart is just more.
Although he did say it was one of his biggest mistakes.
Well, but
later on,
that's true.
We got the truth on the table.
That's true.
He did.
That's true. But
many times.
But the point being that he did it.
Yeah, he did something.
He did it. And he got a lot of flack for it.
Yep.
A lot of flack for it. But he stepped up. He was bold enough. And he did that.
You know what Ronald Reagan would be looked at right now in the Republican Party? He'd be looked at just a notch above Adam Kissinger and Liz Cheney.
Probably. I hate to admit it.
You're right, Guillermo. I mean, it'd be for different reasons, but he would be.
Yeah. I agree. I hate to admit it, but I absolutely agree.
Yet you have the Reagan Cup. How about Lincoln? Appointing a cabinet of rivals. Could you imagine a political party going in there and then getting in office and you bring in your biggest enemy politically that called you a baboon to be your Secretary of Defense?
Well, and Doris Kearns Goodwin wrote that book.
Yeah.
Rivals. And excellent book, but that's a great point.
Let me ask you this. We're going to switch gears here because I want this to be left hanging here for talking as a talking point next week. Are we at the Big Fresno Fair next week, or is it the week after, Guillermo?
It's the week after. We got one week where we got to pack up the studio, and then we're moving.
Yeah, we'll be broadcasting from Big Fresno Fair. Oh joy! Right down. No cinnamon rolls. I love it. You got great cinnamon rolls. All right, here because I want to get this on the table here, and callers, hang on there. We got several of them. Vladimir Putin made a speech that pretty much, if the media covered it at all, it was just in a cursory fashion, not giving it the importance that I feel with all my heart that it deserves. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it is freaking scary how little people are paying attention to this man. Here's a man who has the biggest nuclear arsenal at his disposal on the planet, more than we do. And he said, look, this is an existential issue. Russia's existence depends on this war achieving the goals that I've set forth in this war. And if pushed too far, this was his kind of warning speech to America and Western Europe, that if you keep pushing me, this is going to happen. He says, we have weapons that you have no idea. You can't match. Okay? You don't have the technology. We're not going to tell you what it is. Just trust me, it's something you've never seen before, and it's going to be devastating if I use it. And if I'm pushed, I'll use it. And what do we hear, Guillermo? Lindsey Graham, they're just bluffing. They're just bluffing. They're just bluffing. Well, 1945, our President Harry Truman sent a cable to the Emperor of Japan. In that cable, he told the Emperor, look, you need to come to the table. You need to end this. Because we have a weapon, the likes of which you have never seen. The likes of which would unleash a horror upon your nation that's unimaginable. We don't want to use it, but we will. Well, the Emperor said, you're bluffing. You're lying. You're not going to do it. Well, guess what? It wasn't a crazy dictator over in Russia that loaded up a bomb called the Big Boy in the Enola Gay. It was the leader of the free world, the leader of a democracy, by all accounts, a really good man who made the determination that America's existence, its existential factors of surviving as a country were being threatened by Imperial Japan. And he pushed a button. He dropped the bomb. They called his bluff, and he dropped it. Hundreds of thousands of people incinerated. He dropped another one a week later on Nagasaki. The world changed forever. Here's my point. We have a history in this world of seeing what we would say the good guys. America was the good guys during World War II. Had a good president. Give them hell, Harry. The buck stops here, Harry. Guy that followed Franklin Roosevelt and ended the war. He ended the war by dropping 2 atomic bombs and killing a bunch of innocent people. Mm-hmm. And you can debate whether he should have done that or not, but he did it. So you think if the leader of a free world historically had it within his soul to nuclear annihilate 2 cities in Japan, you're thinking that this guy that you call pretty much Satan with a Russian accent, is not willing to use atomic weapons? Where is the common sense in that? I think it's irrational to think that he wouldn't do it.
Agreed.
That's what we're messing with, folks, when I'm on this show calling for peace. Because once that button is pushed, the domino effect will... Do you know some of the smallest atomic bombs now are like 10, 15, 20, 30 times more powerful than what was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? And they knew, people said, well, they didn't know what it was going to do. Yes, they did. They were working on the Manhattan Project for over a year. They tested it. These scientists knew what was going to happen. So this is what I want our leaders to think about. That's why I say, look at history. And you say, and Republicans, you want to demonize these people that are taking down our statues and wiping out history and don't learn from history. Our most valuable teacher, by the way, called history. Just wipe it away. And yet you don't look at it yourself, Lindsey Graham. You don't look at it yourself, Mitch McConnell. You don't look at it yourself, Joe Biden. You have the future of the entire planet in your hands, and you're playing with fire, nuclear fire. Anyway, you better take this guy seriously. And what does that mean? No, it doesn't mean you acquiesce and bow to them. That means you get to the peace table and you let reality trump fantasy. Because it has, we were talking before the show, Reality has gone up against fantasy since time immemorial. And you know what? Reality is undefeated. It's about 10 quadrillion, thousand million to zero. Reality always wins, not the fantasy we make up in our own heads or in our own political ideologies.
And reality is ugly a lot of times.
So. It's absolutely, and it could get a lot uglier with this thing. Yep. They need to get to the negotiation table, diplomatic table, peace table, whatever you want to talk it. This issue is about ready to tip beyond. I shudder, and I look at my little grandkid. I'm not playing with you. Got your grandkids, son. We live for our kids and our grandkids, and you look at these little kids running around, going, "My God, what? This we're that close." And you people, like I said, just look at history. Look at history. All right, let's go up. We got a little time. Let's go to Laura. You there? You got a comment on immigration, and then Jessica, you hang on there. We're gonna get to you before we leave it. You there, Laura?
I'm here.
Okay, let's change the subject. Go. You got a comment on immigration?
Yes, I do. One of the biggest things that they're going to have to do is they're going to have to simplify the actual process of getting your visa. I deal with this every single day. It's obscene and it's insane because if they put a number in the wrong spot, they reject the entire case and they have to start back over from the beginning.
You're talking about the
average cost for one person to go from illegal status to having a green card is $15,000 if
yes,
they hire an attorney.
I agree.
And the majority who don't hire attorneys get rejected.
Laura, I've been all
know how to fill out the paperwork. It's
amen.
insane what they have them do. They have a variety of classifications.
Yes.
So you have to figure out what classification are you. I have to deal with this all the time with the people from Afghanistan, and it's insane.
Laura, you're just, I've been on this for 20 years, over 20 years. The legal immigration system needs to be reformed and cleansed because it's as illegal as the cartel. You go, why do you say that, Al? I said, I'll tell you why. The decision for what you just said is so complex. Here in California, a while back, it took about $2,000 to fill out all the applications. Then if you made one error, or even if you filled them out correctly, you had a less than a 5% chance of getting in. They were all rejected. But guess what? There, when you were finally rejected, you were given this note with a number on it, and it says, call this number. It was your local coyote. Okay, and guess what? The going rate here at the border in California was for a average coyote $2,000. So what they did, they knew it was the system was crooked, and what happened was that referral to the coyote would kick back $500 to the system, the person in the system that was rejecting these applications and saying no to the applications, and pretty soon. They knew they were going to be rejected, like you just pointed out. It's too complex. It's too costly. I'm going to roll the dice in the back in the bed of the coyote's pickup truck, or I'm going to jump into one of these death wagons and take my chances. Yeah. And if they don't cleanse that, but you know why they won't, Laura? Because the tentacles.
It's first of all, there's money, and secondly, it's a boogeyman for both parties.
Exactly. The tentacles are going to lead to people that you wouldn't even imagine that have been profiting on this illegal immigration system, and you followed their votes and what they knew and when they knew it. I mean, it's evil.
What I deal with. There's so much complexity with people who have already been vetted by the Department of Defense and the Department of State who work for our government. My congressman assigned me my own personal liaison to deal with a total of 9 families because it's that ridiculous. I have 5-inch binders on each of these families for all of their documents, all of their threat declarations, everything. And we're still nowhere near where we should be.
I agree. Along with when you secure that border simultaneously on multiple paths at the same time, you have to initiate a cleansing of that of the legal immigration system because it's corrupt from top to bottom. On top of being too onerous in terms of the paperwork, it's designed to fail. And that has to change. Laura, thank you. I want to get to Jessica because she has her mom's not doing too well, and we want to check in with her. She's called a couple of times, and appreciate that insight, Laura, because that's a story that's just not being told enough. Thank you. Let's go to Jessica. Jessica, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, fill us in on Mom. You said you're calling. Give us a little update on your mama. Folks who may not know, Jessica's mom is going through a tough stretch here, and we're just trying to be there for a loyal Autry's Army member. And go ahead, give us an update.
Well, the doctors confirmed that she's only got a few weeks left.
I'm so sorry, but she knows Jesus, right?
Well, she knows,
Jessica.
but I'm giving up. He gave up. Why can't I?
Well, the thing is, though, when somebody's called home, when we say we give up, we kind of put too much importance on this life, because this is not the end. Because our soul is a never dying entity created by God, and this thing we're wearing, this body that gets sick and wears out, I call it. HB's calls us a spacesuit. This is just what's housing our soul for this moment. We're promised as believers that we're going to be able to be with Him when we leave this body, and have a brand new body that never wears out and never gets sick again. And that's where your mom is going to go. It's tough because we mourn for ourselves. They're going home. She's going to be home, and when she gets home in heaven, and if she was given the opportunity to come back, Jessica, she wouldn't. That's how much she's going to love where she's going. And I know it's tough. I lost my mother, and it doesn't matter if you lose your mother at 15 years ago or 55 years ago, it's still mama. And it's a big hole. But Robert, do you have some words of comfort? And we just have a few minutes. Maybe you could lead in prayer for Jessica and her mom.
Well, we always, in tough times, we as humans, we have our own personal reaction, our own personal thoughts and all of this. But the best place to go is just to go back to the Bible, because this has all been covered many, many times in there. And yes, sometimes you're just reading words, but you really have to let those words make an impression on you and really read the words. Don't just read them as you're reading a newspaper, but take it in and really ingest it and really get the feeling of what this is trying to tell you. Because there's a lot of hard stuff in the Bible, but there's a lot of comfort, because you have to know that got to be a better place than this.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you know that, it doesn't make it easier sometimes, but you understand better what's going on. And it's tough. We've both been there.
Yeah.
My mom passed away 35 years ago. Something like that. And she was a young lady.
My mom passed out in 2007.
I've already outlived her.
Yeah.
She was only 68.
Yeah,
but
she went way too early.
Yeah, it's tough. But you have to look back to the Bible as your strength and your foundation, and to know that there's a better place than earth.
And Jessica, as the Bible says, here's the thing you hang on to. This is not goodbye. This is just see you in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see her again.
Right.
You're going to be able to hug her again. She's going to be able to hug you.
I feel like I don't have no more strength.
That's why you got to rely on Him. Just rely on God. Give it to Him. Say, God, I love my mama. I love my mama, but she's yours. Because He's working out some things with her right now that she probably doesn't have the energy to speak to you about, but her and God are talking about it. I'm convinced of that. When God is ready to take you home, that's when you'll take your last breath. And until that last breath, He's working on that individual, working on that person He loves so much, who knows every hair of her head, my head, your head. That's how personal the relationship is. And He's working on people around her, your mama, that love you. What's your mama's name?
Lana.
Lynn?
Lana, L-A-N-A.
Lana. Okay. And all of Lana's friends and relatives, he's using this to bring not only her, but you closer to Him. That's why anything is allowed to have Him, whether it feels good or feels bad, whether it's a time of joy or a time of testing. God doesn't tempt, but He tests. And he wants us to become stronger and closer to Him. And that's the best words of comfort I can give you along with, I know how you're feeling. And Robert knows how you're feeling. There's a lot of folks listening and watching out there. You're not alone. When mamas go, I'm not saying anything against dads. I lost a dad, and I lost two of them. Stepdad, who was everything a dad could be. You know, Joe.
Yeah.
It was rough. And my natural father, when he passed on, we'd been able to develop a relationship. But losing your mama, there's something about that. Mamas give birth, you know. The daddies contribute, but mama gives the birth. And you just hold strong, as Robert said, hold strong on that God's in control, the most powerful force in the universe. They created her. I mean, that's your mama, but it's God's daughter. It's God's child.
Yeah.
Okay? And you know what you do for your child. Okay? And you just, every day, and you got to do it every day to build that strength. Just go to prayer, read your Bible, go to prayer, and keep saying, Lord, this is, mama's yours. And there will be a level of comfort. I'm not saying that pain's going to go away. I'm never going to lie to you like that. That's painful. But you will get through it. And you know, some things in life, I wish there was other remedies for certain things that happen, but there's certain things in life that only time can heal. That only time can truly heal, with God's grace, but time to let him. And that's going to be the case here. But you will get through with that, and you will have a level of peace. And you go to bed at night knowing that your mama's in a place that she loves. She wouldn't come back if she was given a chance, as much as she loves you and her family, and that you're going to be able to see her again soon. All right?
Yeah, I hear it in the music. I'll let you go.
Well,
I'm
God
sorry.
bless you. No, don't be sorry about anything. God bless you. You call anytime. Oh, Robert.
Hey.
That's tough.
End of the
It's
week.
tough.
Yeah,
but you know,
that's the tough one.
God is good.
Yep.
Folks, thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Jessica, Lana, all those listening, watching on social media, God bless you, and just do your best and let God do the rest. And I promise you, it's going to turn out the way it's supposed to. God bless, and see you on Monday. Bye-bye now.